Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I break down the world's most fascinating business empires. And today, we're diving deep into LVMH, the company that owns Louis Vuitton, Dior, Tiffany, Moët, Hennessy, Fendi, Bulgari, Tag Heuer, Sephora, and 66 other luxury brands. This isn't just a business story, it's a masterclass in strategy, psychology, and empire building. I'm going to show you how LVMH turned luxury into the most recession-proof industry on the planet, how Bernard Arnault became a billionaire 170 times over, and why this business model is almost impossible to replicate. Hit that subscribe button because this is going to be a deep dive. Let's get into it. Let's start with the numbers, because they're almost incomprehensible. LVMH is worth over 400 billion. That's bigger than the GDP of entire countries like Norway or Singapore. In 2023, they generated $86 billion in revenue with $21 billion in profit. That's a 24% profit margin across the entire group. For context, Apple's margin is around 26%, but they're selling technology at scale. LVMH is selling crafted leather goods and bottles of wine. But here's where it gets really interesting. LVMH owns 75 brands across 5 divisions: fashion and leather goods, Louis Vuitton, Dior, Fendi, Givenchy, Celine, Loewe, Marc Jacob, wines and spirits, Moët Chandon, Hennessy, Dom Pérignon, Veuve Clicquot perfumes and cosmetics, Dior Beauty, Givenchy Beauty, Guerlain, fresh watches and jewelry, Tag Heuer, Bulgari, Tiffany & Co., Hublot, selective retail, Sephora, DFS duty-free shops, Le Bon Marché. Now, what's genius about this structure is that each brand operates independently. If you work at Dior, you don't feel like you're working for the same company as Sephora. Each brand has its own creative director, its own identity, its own culture. But behind the scenes, they all share LVMH's infrastructure: manufacturing facilities, supply chains, distribution networks, legal teams, real estate portfolios. It's like having 75 different restaurants, each with its own chef and menu, but they all use the same kitchen, suppliers, and landlord. The customer sees diversity and exclusivity. LVMH sees efficiency and cost savings. To understand LVMH, you need to understand the man who built it, Bernard Arnault. And honestly, his story reads like a corporate thriller. Arnault was born in 1949 in northern France. His family owned a construction company. He studied engineering, worked for his father, and seemed destined for a comfortable but unremarkable career. Then, in 1984, he made his first power move. Christian Dior, yes, the Dior, was struggling financially and was being sold off by the French government. Arnault convinced his father and investors to help him buy the textile company that owned Dior. He paid $15 million. Within 2 years, he sold off everything except Dior. That's the Arnault method. Acquire the whole company, keep the crown jewel, discard the rest. But the real story begins in 1987. LVMH had just been formed through a merger between Louis Vuitton and Moët Hennessy, but the two sides were fighting for control. The company was paralyzed. Arnault saw an opportunity. He started quietly buying shares, then more shares. He formed alliances with key investors. He played both sides against each other. And by 1989, he had majority control. The executives who created LVMH were pushed out. Arnault was now in charge. Since then, he's been on an acquisition rampage. In the 1990s, he bought Givenchy, Kenzo, and Celine. In the 2000s, Fendi, Donna Karan, and Marc Jacobs. In 2011, Bulgari for $5.2 billion. In 2021, Tiffany & Co. for $15.8 billion, the biggest luxury deal in history. And here's what separates Arnault from other billionaires. He's not just a financier. He's deeply involved in the creative process. He approves designs, hires creative directors, visits stores. He understands that luxury isn't just about profit, it's about desirability, and desirability requires obsessive attention to detail. There's a famous story. When LVMH was renovating a boutique, Arnault noticed the door handle was slightly off-center. He made them redo it. Because at LVMH, perfection isn't negotiable. All right, let's talk about the money. How does LVMH generate such insane profits? It comes down to 4 core strategies. LVMH has mastered the art of artificial scarcity. They deliberately produce less than demand. Walk into a Louis Vuitton store and good luck finding that iconic, never-full bag in stock. Some items have 6-month wait lists. Some are only sold in certain countries. This isn't a supply chain problem. This is intentional. Scarcity creates obsession. If you can walk in and buy something anytime, it's not exclusive. But if you have to wait, if you have to work for it, suddenly it's a status symbol. Hermès does this perfectly with the Birkin bag. You can't just buy a Birkin. You have to build a relationship with the store, buy other items, prove you're worthy. Some Birkins sell for 50,000 plus, and there's still a wait list. That's the power of scarcity. Here's a rule LVMH lives by. Luxury goods never go on sale. Ever. You will never see a Louis Vuitton Black Friday deal. You'll never see a Dior clearance section. Why? Because discounting destroys perceived value. If a $3,000 bag goes on sale for $500, customers think, was it ever really worth $3,000? The magic is gone. So what does LVMH do with unsold inventory? They destroy it, literally. Burn it, shred it, whatever it takes to keep it off the secondary market. Sounds wasteful? Absolutely, but it protects the brand's integrity. A destroyed bag can't devalue the brand. A discounted bag can. LVMH controls the entire supply chain. They own the tanneries that produce leather. They own the factories that craft the bags. They own the boutiques that sell them. They even own many of the duty-free shops in airports where people impulse buy. This gives them 2 massive advantages. First, higher margins. No middlemen, no wholesalers. Every dollar goes directly to LVMH. Second, quality control. They can ensure every stitch, every detail, every interaction is perfect. Because in luxury, one bad experience can ruin a brand's reputation forever. Let's put some numbers on this. A Louis Vuitton canvas bag costs around $200, $300 to make. Materials, labor, everything. Compare that to a typical fashion brand like Zara or H&M, where margins are 10 to 15%. LVMH isn't in the fashion business, they're in the status business. LVMH doesn't sell products, they sell identity. When someone buys a Louis Vuitton bag, they're not buying leather and stitching. They're buying the feeling of success, the signal that they've made it, the validation of belonging to an exclusive club. This is why LVMH invests billions in marketing and brand experience. Fashion shows, celebrity endorsements, flagship stores in the most expensive real estate in the world. The New York Louis Vuitton store isn't just a store, it's a temple. And here's the psychological trick. The higher the price, the more desirable it becomes. This is called Veblen goods, products where demand increases as price increases because people buy them specifically to display wealth. A $500 bag signals that you have money. A $5,000 bag signals that you have so much money that $5,000 just is nothing to you. LVMH has weaponized this psychology across all 75 brands. Now let's talk about how LVMH grows. Because they're not just building brands, they're buying them. And Bernard Arnault has perfected the art of the luxury acquisition. In November 2019, LVMH agreed to buy Tiffany & Co. for $16.2 billion, the biggest luxury acquisition ever. Tiffany was iconic but struggling. Sales were flat. The brand felt outdated. Then COVID hit. LVMH tried to back out of the deal. They claimed Tiffany's performance had deteriorated. Tiffany sued. It got messy. But here's the genius move. Arnault used the chaos to renegotiate. He got the price down to $15.8 billion, a $400 million discount. Then, after closing the deal in January 2021, LVMH went to work. They fired the CEO, brought in a new creative team, renovated flagship stores, launched new collections, repositioned Tiffany as modern, edgy, and relevant. By 2023, Tiffany's sales were up 20%. The turnaround was complete. This is the LVMH playbook. 1. Identify a luxury brand with heritage but weak performance. 2. Acquire it, preferably at a discount. 3. Inject LVMH's resources, supply chain, marketing, retail expertise. 4. Elevate the brand without losing its DNA. 5. Watch profits soar. They did this with Bulgari. They did it with Loro Piana. They're doing it with Tiffany right now, and they'll do it again. Not every brand is acquisition material. LVMH has strict criteria. Heritage. The brand must have history, craftsmanship, and cultural significance. They're not buying fast fashion startups. Desirability. The brand must have emotional resonance. People must want to own it. Growth potential. LVMH doesn't buy brands to maintain them. They buy them to explode their value. Strategic fit. The brand must complement the portfolio without cannibalizing other brands. This is why LVMH bought Tiffany, jewelry, Bulgari, jewelry, and Tag Heuer, watches. They're building dominance in categories where they see long-term growth. So why can't someone just copy LVMH? Why isn't there an LVMH of tech or LVMH of sports apparel? Because LVMH has built an unbreakable moat around its business. Louis Vuitton was founded in 1854, Moët Chandon in 1743. You can't replicate 270 years of history with a marketing budget. Heritage is earned, not bought. When you see the LV monogram, your brain doesn't just see a logo, it sees 170 years of luxury, craftsmanship, and status. That's brand equity, and it's worth billions. LVMH employs over 200,000 people, including thousands of artisans, leather workers, watchmakers, perfumers, jewelers. Many of these skills take 10-20 years to master. A Hermès artisan spends years learning how to stitch a Birkin bag by hand. LVMH has similar expertise across dozens of categories. This isn't something you can just hire from a job posting. It's generational knowledge. LVMH owns over 5,500 stores worldwide in the most expensive locations on Earth. Champs-Élysées in Paris, Fifth Avenue in New York, Ginza in Tokyo. These leases are locked in for decades. They also own DFS, the largest duty-free retailer in the world, with stores in every major airport. This gives them unmatched access to wealthy international travelers. LVMH's customers are the ultra-wealthy. The top 10% of their customers generate 50 to 60% of revenue. These are people for whom a $10,000 handbag is a casual purchase. And here's the thing, wealthy people don't stop being wealthy during recessions. In 2008, 2020, and even in 2023 with inflation, LVMH's sales barely dipped. The rich keep spending. That's the ultimate moat, a recession-proof customer base. When you own 75 brands, you can cross-promote, bundle, and create synergies. A customer who buys Dior makeup at Sephora might later buy a Dior dress. A couple buying Moët champagne for their wedding might later buy a Tag Heuer watch as an anniversary gift. LVMH captures customers at every life stage and across every luxury category. That's why competitors can't compete. They don't have the breadth. But let's be real. No company is invincible. LVMH faces serious risks. China represents 35% of LVMH's revenue. Chinese consumers are the world's biggest luxury spenders. But China's economy is slowing. Real estate markets are crashing. Youth unemployment is at record highs. In 2022, when China had strict COVID lockdowns, LVMH's stock dropped 20%. If China's economy struggles long-term, LVMH feels it. Millennials and Gen Z care about sustainability, authenticity, and experiences over possessions. They're more likely to rent designer clothes than buy them. They'd rather spend on travel than a handbag. LVMH has tried to adapt, using sustainable materials, reducing waste, embracing digital. But there's a fundamental tension. Luxury is about excess. Sustainability is about restraint. Can the two coexist? The more desirable the brand, the more counterfeits flood the market. Fake Louis Vuitton bags are everywhere. On street corners, online marketplaces, even convincing replicas that fool experts. Counterfeits dilute exclusivity. If everyone has a Louis Vuitton bag, even a fake one, is it still a status symbol? LVMH spends millions fighting counterfeits, but it's an endless battle. We live in an era of rising wealth inequality. Luxury brands are becoming symbols of that divide. There's growing resentment toward conspicuous consumption. LVMH burning unsold inventory while people struggle financially? That's a PR nightmare waiting to happen. As social consciousness grows, luxury brands may face backlash. Bernard Arnault is 75 years old. He's been CEO for over 35 years. LVMH is Arnault. His vision, his decisions, his instincts have driven every success. What happens when he steps down? His children are already involved in the business, but can they replicate his genius? Succession at family-controlled empires is always risky. So what's next for LVMH? LVMH is moving into hospitality. They've opened luxury hotels under the Cheval Blanc brand in Paris, the Maldives, and Saint-Tropez. Why? Because their customers don't just buy products, they live luxury lifestyles. Hotels are a natural extension. They're also experimenting with NFTs and digital luxury, virtual Louis Vuitton bags for avatars, blockchain authentication for physical products. It sounds crazy, but younger consumers are spending real money on digital goods. China may be slowing, but the rest of Asia is growing. India has 200 million people entering the middle class. Southeast Asia is booming. LVMH is opening stores in Mumbai, Bangkok, and Jakarta. LVMH has invested heavily in sports partnerships. They're the official timekeeper of Formula One, Tag Heuer. They sponsor the Olympics, and Dior dresses athletes. Sports is the new cultural currency, especially for Gen Z. Imagine walking into a Louis Vuitton store, and AI recognizes you, knows your purchase history, and suggests products tailored to your taste. LVMH is investing in this. The future of luxury is hyper-personalization. But here's the big question. Can LVMH maintain its exclusivity while growing? Growth requires scale. Exclusivity requires scarcity. At some point, those two forces collide. If LVMH grows too much, their brands risk becoming too accessible. If they stay too exclusive, they cap their revenue. Finding that balance is the challenge of the next decade. LVMH has built the most profitable business model in the world by understanding human nature. We want what we can't have. We value what others desire. We buy to signal who we are. And Bernard Arnault? He's not just a businessman. He's a psychologist, a strategist, and an artist. He's built an empire that will outlast him by decades, maybe centuries. If you enjoyed this deep dive, here's what I need from you. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I break down businesses like this every single week. Tesla, Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, you name it. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think luxury brands are worth the price, or is it all just clever marketing? I read every single comment. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this insight into the strategy of LVMH, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification. This is Business Explained.